Welcome to today's Demonar. I'm Scott Sullivan, your host from NotesCode. Our topic today is total control of your Notes source code development and promotion processes. And I would like to give a special thanks to Team Studio, who is doing the presentation today. Our presenters will be Dan Colbert, Larry Barker, and Grant Norman. The website for Team Studio is teamstudio.com. We appreciate everyone's time today, and just as a reminder that your attendance today does enter you in for the drawing for the trip to Connect 2013. For those of us that have been around long enough, it's still Lotus Fair. Our session today will have two demos. We'll have actually some slides, two demos, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. On your GoToWebinar control panel, there is a area for questions. If you would like to ask a question, go ahead and type in the question at any time during the Demonar, and then they'll be queued up for the Q&A session at the end of their demos. So that's how we'll handle the questions and answers. I'll read them from the list, and then either Dan, Larry, or Grant will respond to those questions. Again, thank you for your time today. Team Studio, thank you for your time. Dan, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate it. And all right. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes, we see your screen. We're ready to go.
Outstanding. Thank you, everyone, for making time today. Hopefully, everyone is in some way, shape, or form familiar with Team Studio. Currently, a lot of the messaging you're going to see is around our Unplugged system, which is the leading platform for mobile applications. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, a topic and a subject matter that's near and dear to everyone's heart, which is source code control, version control, and rollback within the Lotus Notes application development environment. As Scott mentioned, the presenters, myself, Dan Colbert, Vice President of Sales in the North American and Latin American region, excuse me, Grant Norman is our Technical Director in the UK in the India region, and Larry Barker, who is kind enough to be joining us from the wee hours of the evening in APAC. So Team Studio, as I mentioned earlier, you may be familiar with us in many ways over the years. We've got the core set of development tools, including Analyzer, Configurator, Delta, and Chow for application development. We've been an IBM business partner going back greater than 12 or 13 years. And these products are mature products that have been on the market and helping companies of all shapes and sizes bring process and control to their development environment. We are a global organization with headquarters here in Beverly, Massachusetts, but with a presence in Europe and the Asia Pacific region as well. And as I mentioned, not only administrator and development tools, but also now moving into the mobile app.
Bear with us, everyone. Looks like we might have a small audio difficulty.
Okay, are we back online?
Dan, I hear you now again.
Okay, outstanding. So today we're going to be talking about the application lifecycle, and specifically how you can adapt some of the standard practices of the application development lifecycle into your not so standard, in many cases, Lotus Notes development process. One of the benefits, as we all know, with Lotus Notes is the ability to, and has always been the ability to quickly create the production-ready applications and produce those for your end users in a timely fashion. And over the years, certain practices have sort of expanded and grown within organizations where some of the more standard stages of requirements gathering, QA, and as structured version control and deployment processes that you may see on other platforms using systems like CVS, PVCS, ClearCase, and so on, have not been adapted because of the unique quality of Lotus Notes. So in terms of the environments themselves, we try to talk about Lotus Notes application development in stage environment terms. So we're looking at the development environment, having a controlled area which doesn't directly impact our production environment, so a dedicated development environment. A test environment, in which case our end users and our QA professionals can give feedback to our developers and fix bugs, tweaks, look and feel type of issues. And then a controlled process so that we can move those gold certified tested applications into our production level. And so when we look at the Lotus Notes application development environment, there are some things that are lacking natively. In particular, the audit trail component. So when you're faced with compliancy or regulatory issues, or you really just want to be able to assist in troubleshooting and need an audit trail, that's not something that's native within Notes. And we also, because there's not a built-in source code management system, they're in a team-based environment, there may be areas where you're conflicting during the development process or overwriting changes. Ideally, you'd like to be able to have an audit trail not only for compliancy but for rollback in critical situations. A good, clean process so multiple developers can work efficiently without conflict. And also some timestamp and developer recognition on who made what change and when, so that again, troubleshooting and future application development folks can be referenced and brought into the process. So Team Studio Chow, check in and out as an acronym. Again, you may be familiar with this. It's a plugin for your designer and Lotus Notes client that allows you to view changes, check out changes, insert comments so that you can specifically detail why things were completed. There are some very nice features that Grant Norman will review with you, so I won't go through each feature, but it does allow you to sort all of your design elements in a very professional looking and clean UI, look at references, dependencies, and also create versions so that you can store versions, previously tested and gold certified versions, keep those in a log, and provide for quick and nimble rollbacks when needed. And it's just a quick peek into the UI. As I said, it's a simple and clean interface. Those of you that have used it before may recall, a short ramp up in terms of getting familiar with Chow. Again, we've got the history, the log, and version labels. It's all completely customizable so that you can create your versions and name your versions and with the point and numbering system that suits your organization. So Chow allows for checking out of design elements, storing of versions, and it takes you to a certain point. It solves many issues, but it does reach a point where then manual processes take over in terms of the actual deployment of your new template for production. And this is where the Build Manager system, which is a separate product, I mean the two tools that we're looking today are separate tools, but when you're looking at a complete source code management and deployment system, they work hand in hand. And I would say 99% of the customers that we have with Build Manager also do have a Chow system in place because they're very complementary. What Chow allows you to do is eliminate the manual effort and the time spent that your administrators are logging along with your developers to actually move your new templates and your new versions of your databases into production. So it eliminates the time. It also will eliminate the potential for human error because it's done in an automated fashion with the click of one button, which is the promote button. And when I refer to a promote, we're talking about promoting from a development environment into QA and also from QA into production. So we've got the complete full feature set, which will do the signing of the database, look at ACL settings, compiling of Lotus script, email notifications. There's also a workflow functionality for approval that's built in before the database is actually sent into production. So all of your, sort of, as I said, manual and compliancy steps that are currently done by your staff can now be done with Build Manager and free folks up, in terms of resources to work on other projects and make more efficient use of their time. So, and again, Larry Barker will be covering the Build Manager demonstration, but it essentially you will build a promotion path, and you can look at these almost as a checklist, a pre-production deployment checklist, and build them as steps into the Build Manager product. And once you've built this, the steps, you've got what's called a promotion path, and when you click the promote button, automatically each one of these steps will be executed. In the next project you build, or the next application development project that you're working on, you can then take a standard path that you've already created, copy it over for the next project, and tweak as needed. We also keep a promotion log, as we do with Chow, and within the log you have the ability to look at each one of the steps, and if for any reason the build failed, it will specifically target what the error was, what happened, again with timestamps and details for troubleshooting. Another feature of the Build Manager system is the template repository. And again, Larry can talk a little bit about this, but what the template repository allows you to do, and you see it here at the top of the slide, it allows development to push versions of their NSFs once they've completed development and they're ready for QA into a separate area so that they can communicate back and forth with QA. And QA can then have the ability to reject or send databases back to development with comments, and then also keep gold release versions that are ready for production in separate silos. And if there's a need for a quick a rollback, or once a gold release and an approved version has been sent to production, the template repository allows you within Build Manager to quickly go back and grab, in this case, if it were version NTF 1.1, if there was a need for this database to go back into production, it's there, it's tested, it's a gold release version, and it's ready to be deployed with one click. So the whole workflow with the template repository allows development to work with QA, allows QA to work with the admins for production, and keeps a log and keeps the silos in place of each database at their respective stage. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the functionality of Build Manager. As I mentioned, they're two different products, so therefore, to make things clear, we've got two different presenters. They're both technical directors that have been with Team Studio for a very long time, and they're experts not only with these products, but also in the area of source code control and Lotus Notes development. The first one is Grant Norman, and Grant will be walking through a demonstration of the Chow product itself, and then we'll move on to Larry's Build Manager demo. So without further ado, I would like to change presenter, and Grant, the mouse will be coming your way. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Right, so hopefully now you should be seeing my designer, Domino designer screen at the moment. As soon as I push that button, there we go. Okay, so I'm in designer now, and I'm just going to jump back to the Notes client very quickly, because this demo of Chow, I'm going to be showing you a few little changes to this database here called Visual Address Book, and how that is shown within Chow, within the source code control system, and the versions that get created at both elements and database level. Alright, so this database has already been put under Chow control, which is in itself a simple process, so I'm not going to run through that. But if I now switch back to Designer, we can see the forms in the visual address book database, and all I want to do as a developer is come in and make a quick change to this person form. So I'm going to open it up exactly as normal, and as you can see, someone has made it a horrendous red color. So I'm just going to come into form properties and make that a far more sensible, make it a nice pastel-y color. And as soon as I make a change to the design of this form, whether it's in this case a property or a code change or a change to the background, Chow has jumped in and has asked me if I would like to check this out before making the change. This is because with the Chow system, with the Chow client plugin, you are really able to take and give control of your design elements when you need them, rather than operating with whole files as you would with a traditional file control system. So I'm going to say yes because I want to make my change. If I say no, then it's not going to let me save my change at all. So we'll say yes in there, and like any good developer, I'm going to properly comment my my change. Change background. Cursor people watching the type. Change background color. Sorry, American audience. There we go. And I also have the ability here to select a known issue that somebody has reported, so the work that I'm doing is associated back to a known documented problem with a number from another database. So we have full control back with our bug tracking, or issue tracking, SPR tracking, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so now let's save that. My change is in there. Save the form and come back out of it. Okay, so what else has that done? Well, we can see in the application list, I'm in a little working set here, we can see that the 8.5 integration within Designer gives us this nice handy little change of icon to show which elements I have under my control. So in this case I have the config form and the person form. Also, if I just scroll across a little bit in Designer, I can see my name has been added to the comments. So anybody that's not using 8.5 Designer will be able to see as well that I have these checked out. Okay, now that was just a very small change. Of course, I could have written a whole new post-open event or something on the form, but just to keep things nice and brief, that's all I'm going to do for now. And of course, I have it checked out. I have control. Now that I've finished, I need to relinquish that control. So using a right click in the application pane on the left, I can choose Team Studio Chow and check in. And it has kept my comments, so I'm going to OK that. And we can now see that the icon has changed back to the default available icon again. Right, one other thing I'm going to show you. So if you are working on X pages as well, we fully support X pages. And I did want to work on this iPhone search element here, but hopefully you can make that out. There is a little no entry symbol on there, so that indicates it is not under my control and therefore I can't work on it. So any attempts by me to make changes would be pushed back by Chow. Well, who has got that open? When clicking on it, you should hopefully see that my properties pane at the bottom has also a little Chow section to it, and I can see the owner is, in this case, Vicky Lincoln. When she checked it out, whether she has modified it, so whether she has saved any changes, although she hasn't checked it in yet, there are changes written to the database, and also what her comments were when she made the checkout. So I get a little bit of the picture of why she's got it checked out, and whether it's been checked out for a long time and forgotten about or not, and things like that. Okay, so this is the basic intuitive functionality that we have with Chow now in the 8.5 Designer client that helps us work far more naturally than ever before in Notes. So there is some more, not necessarily advanced functionality, but to go beyond this basic check-in and check-out, I need to run Chow itself. I can either do that from the menu down here, but also I have a Chow icon in my smart icon bar at the top if I wish as well. I'm just going to run Chow from the right click. Right, so the UI I have here shows me all the elements in the database. The UI is configurable. I've taken the alias column out, for example, just to save a bit of space. And we can see in this case I have the element iPhone search checked out to Vicky still. So I can see that. If I scroll back up, I can see the config form that I had checked out and also the person form that I checked out earlier as well. Right, well I'm going to keep working on the person form here because my boss has seen the change that I've made and he's not really happy with that pastel-y colour in the background. He wants it to go back to how it always was. From a double click on the elements within the UI, I can get this history box, and within there I can see all the elements when they were changed, the versions were created, who they were done by, and also the comments. The critical thing to remember with Chow is that when you check in, this is the point in which it creates its version. Okay, so if an element is never checked in, you'll never fill up this history. Okay, so at good points in your development, then it's worth checking in. Even if you are going to carry on working, you can keep it checked out, but you always check in to create a version. So, what can I do in this history box? Well, I saw the red version that was in the version that I changed. I'm not really interested in that. Let's have a look at the baseline version. I have a button here called Delta. This will do a comparison of my either two selected versions. I can select two versions here, or I can just select a single version and then using Delta compare that to, as it says in the top, my current version. Okay, now there's two ways of using Delta. I can do a visual preview just by double clicking there, and you can clearly see my current version. Hopefully it is the pastel, and then my baseline is the plain white. And that's the version my boss would rather I went back to, so we'll see about fixing that. Okay, this is just a little version of Chow that is used to compare versions of the same element through its history. Right, so the baseline is the one I want to use, and when I press rollback, I get a message, I get a reminder that Chow actually has control of my database. So this shows the level of control Chow has in that here I am trying to do a rollback within Chow, but because I haven't checked it out, I haven't authorized myself to perform that change. So, of course, I need to check out first. I can check out from within the UI, and as a 0 developer or 7 developer, so older versions of Notes, this is how you will be checking in and out because you don't have the 8.5 Designer integration. So I will check out the person document and my comments rollback. So my issue, again, my background color. So that's the issue we're fixing. If I come back into my history, select the version I wish to roll back to, push the rollback button, and that will have made the change. We can see the change within the UI. My font is now blue. I have a little asterisk. That denotes a change has been saved to the database and a version is potentially waiting to be checked in. So I'm just going to close the Chow UI quickly, open up the person document, and you can see it's gone back to a white version that was changed by presumably Vicky, or the person who made the red version, and now we're back to the original desired white version. Okay, now there are a few more things we can do within Chow. I'm just going to start Chow from the smart icon this time. And we have the option to select dependencies, which Dan mentioned in his slides earlier. This will select any other elements in the database that my element needs to work successfully. So if I'm doing work on my person form, I can select and check out all these other elements because my form is using them. So we have script library, we have some views. Okay, so we can make sure that nobody else is going to be affecting the change that we're going to be making. So we check out all these elements together. What else can we do? Well, that's really on the basics side of the elements of version control. We can also take whole versions of elements. There are two ways to do this. I can come in through File, Make Version here, but there is a more sophisticated way of doing this in the newer versions of Chow. First thing I have to do is check in my existing elements, because we're ready to promote this database now up to our test environment, and I would like to check everything in because it's not being developed. We need to be making a known good version, therefore everything must be checked in because nothing's being worked on. My first problem is that I have an element checked out to somebody else. Well, I can solve this by using a feature called grab. Grab will take control from, in this case, Vicky, and put it under my control. The changes in the database are saved. She just hasn't checked in a version for whatever reason. But as it's an emergency, you don't want to wait for me to go off and find Vicky to check that in myself. So I'm going to grab it and check it in for her. So let's just say grab. And it is very much an emergency feature. In most situations, you would only do this as a last resort if the person really is not available to check that in themselves. Okay, the rest of the elements, I'm going to check those in. Notice how Chow we can do check-ins and check-outs using multiple versions in one go. Making a version. Okay. Chow has just been conscientious here and asking me if I wish to create a new version of an element, even though there have been no changes. So I'm just going to say no to all to that because I do not need that extra version. And I'm going to come out of the UI and in fact back to the Notes client to show how we do this with whole databases. We can do this from the config database, and I'll explain the roles of the config and log database briefly after this little section. So I have my database under Chow control within the config database, and with about 10 minutes preparation I've set up these different ways of making a version for my visual address book. Now, I think this is going to be a point release because just minor changes have been created. So I'm going to select point release, and then just with one click, this part of Chow within the config database has created a version of that database, of that visual address book, and we can see it was completed with success. We can see the version number is bumped from 100 to 101, and that we will now have a version, known good version of our database called 101. These are stored within the log. Shown within the Chow log, we have, that's my baseline originally, and here is my 101. Chow stores its versions as attachments within the log. Marking them as zips is optional, but through that little bit of pre-configuration, which doesn't take long at all, I've with one click created a version of my database, got it stored within my log. The details within this document, within this step, are very straightforward. All I'm doing is using a macro to and set up automatic comments and telling it to automatically bump the version number. This is why it's so quick and done with one click. Okay, so as far as Chow goes, I think I'm pretty much done. I apologise if I've run over slightly, but I'm going to hand over to Larry to do Build Manager presentation. If you have any questions on the Chow tool, please type them into the chat boxes and we'll come around to them towards the end. So Larry, here we go. Control over to you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. And apologize, this will just take a second while I share my screen. And then hopefully you should be able to see my Notes client.
Yes, we see your Notes client.
And is everyone seeing that okay? Great, great. Okay. So thank you both Grant and Dan. I'd just like to lead on to where they've left off now. As you've learned, Chow is primarily about controlling element level versioning, capturing that within the Chow log, and Grant also showed you a little bit of the promotion functionality that is within Chow that allows you to copy a database to a target location and to basically create a version on the fly. Now, what if you want to take that a little bit farther and you actually want to control your entire promotion process right from development through to UAT, production, and any other staging areas that you might use within your promotion process? Well, we've got this product called Build Manager. And what it will help you do is to kind of align your development practices and release practices with things such as best practices. It does this by doing things such as allowing for the decoupling of your environments so that you're not awaiting a team to receive a template. When development wants to continue developing on a template, they can do so and not have to worry about promoting into the next environment because the next team can take that template when they're ready to receive. It also does this by capturing audit trails of where your templates have been promoted to, what actions have been applied to those promotions, as well as helping you build repeatable processes for your releases and promotions. We call these build steps. And what I'll do is I'll just take you through some of these example steps that you can do within Build Manager to help control your promotion process. And one of the things I would like to touch upon as well is that it is also a beneficial tool not only for development but also for administrators. By saying this, what I mean is, for example, in development, your developers are interested in maintaining their versions. They want to ensure that the version that makes it to production is in fact the same version that they handed off to the release team or to the administrators to push through. By using something like Template Registry, that is a module that comes with Build Manager, you can do just that. Okay. On the administrator side, you can ensure that the developers are performing standardized, repeatable processes when they release so that there is less kind of release problems that could occur when you go into production, thereby fewer problems because people didn't forget to reset the agent server or they didn't forget to sign, as an example, because it's all done repeatable and automatically by the promotion solution. So where I'll start is, if you recall on that slide that Dan showed you, we have something called Template Registry. Okay, what you can think of Template Registry is kind of the holding area or repository where every single version of your template for an application or your release applications is held, okay, and locked. So you can assign roles and ACLs to protect this, so only specific users have access to this, and what it will allow you to do is to control what version of what template is available for release into a target area or into a target environment. So by that I mean, if we look here, we can see in UAT, we've got 3 different versions or 3 different build numbers of applications that are approved for use within the target environment, which is UAT. We've got 1 version of our leaf tracking application that is approved and for use within production. Now, what this allows us to do is basically ensure that version 931 is the one that's in production because, of course, our production level ACLs are all set correctly. And by doing this, we can ensure that if we ever need to roll back, we can be certain as to the version that we're going to roll back to. And it really kind of streamlines kind of a rollback to a previous version due to a bug being found or whatnot earlier, like Dan had mentioned about the rollback. So I'll show you how you can quickly do that with the product as well. So how about I just jump out of here now that you understand this is about controlling the environments and the build numbers and all the versions of templates, and show you what Build Manager actually looks like. So if you recall from his example, we had 3 environments. We have dev, UAT, and production. In this case, you're going to have an instance of Build Manager that has a number of predefined steps that prepares your application and then deploys it and pushes it into your template registry for storage, okay, until it's called upon to go into one of your target environments, being either UAT or production. So in this case, what we're first going to look at is our instance of Build Manager that we have in development, okay. The first thing I'm going to want to show you is that all of the pre-configurable steps that Build Manager can actually perform for you as part of the promotion process. So if we look here, it can do everything from doing, for example, design audits, make versions. You can change database properties. A lot of us will develop maybe on an NSF, and then you want to turn that into an NTF and release and do the design refresh in that manner. You can do that with Build Manager as well. So your developers can all develop on the NSF. Build Manager will take that NSF, convert it, change it into an NTF, and then do a design replace or onto any target NSFs. It'll allow you to do things such as change element properties, design refresh, flags, that sort of thing, do a search and replace. Big ones for, especially for the build path. When I say build path, please think of that as anything that you're going to do to your template as you move it into template registry. So it's going to be things mainly like, for example, maybe doing a make version. It might be doing a compile step to ensure that every single element is recompiled before you store that template in the template registry. Okay, things of that nature. Maybe a design audit as well. So for example, Build Manager will work with some of our other client tools. So if you're familiar with Analyzer or Configurator, with Analyzer you can actually use a filter, for example, as part of your promotion process to go and look for specific design criteria. If a certain UI feature is off, you can actually fail your promotion and have it not occur and flag that so that the developer would actually have to go back and change that before that promotion would be approved and moved into the next target environment. Okay, so we have all these different kinds of steps that we can go and use to either put into a build path or into a promotion path. So the first one I'm going to show you is a promotion path. One of the steps I also have in here is an approval. With the approval, this allows you to bring in perhaps staff in your process that are maybe not Lotus Notes professionals. We have several financial clients who have a separate team who not only control the release or approve the release of Notes applications, but also other technologies as well. So they're pretty much just button pushers for approval. So what you can do is you can have it so that you can have different teams of approvers. You can have up to 5 different approvers on a promotion path. Okay. So depending on how your process works, it's all very configurable. In this case, it's just going to be myself, of course. So I'm going to show you how that promotion approval will work as well. Also on this build, we're just going to do a quick make version, an automated make version step. You can have a manual one as well, where it's going to actually ask you what version number you want to assign to that version, and you have a compile all those script against all elements. Okay, so in order to promote, it's as easy as selecting the build path you want to go to. In this case, we're going dev to UAT. And think of it in this case as actually template registry or the UAT environment within template registry. As soon as I select that, you can have it so that you have a group of users who won't see the admin or resources tab, but they'll only maybe see the promotion database and a few of the other views over here. And they'll be something like a filtered user. So like I mentioned, maybe one of those users who are not a Notes technologist. As soon as I click on that promote database, what's going to happen is that's going to go and it's going to perform those automated steps against that template. Okay, but before it does that, you'll notice that I did enable the approval step. So the first thing it says is, hey, hang on a sec, Larry, you're not allowed to push that template in template registry without the approval of your manager or your release team. So I can say yes, let's start a work process on that, and it's going to give you a brief message saying, okay, who the approvers are on this specific build path, you know, and what application and where it's going to and so forth. So I can say okay on that. What will happen at this approval step is that any approvers that you've specified for the release of this application into template registry will receive a doc link and an email going to this data nodes, which is basically an approval request. Okay, so they can sit here and they can say, okay, well, actually we're going to approve that. And what will happen is that, of course, it's going to capture the date and time that the approval occurred, who actually authorized that. So that's, again, adding to the authenticity of your audit trail. And we can come back out of here and we can then see, okay, we have a couple views over here that's pending approval and approved pending promotion. What this does is this tells your admin or release team, okay, what applications are currently been approved and awaiting release into the next environment, in this case, template registry. And we can see that mine has been approved by Larry, easily enough, and we can simply continue the promotion process. So once I click on that again, it will then go and run those predetermined steps against a template. In this case, we're doing a compile step, and we're going to place a new version into the template registry. Now, what you can also do at this point, I will highlight, is that template registry and the Build Manager solution also works across different domains. So if you decide that you want to have a really locked down promotion process, you can have it so that your dev domain, your UAT has a separate domain, and of course production has a separate domain, and Build Manager will do a promotion on behalf of. And we can actually store ID files within the product to do signing. So if you want to sign agents with a specific ID, sign templates with a different release ID, if you want to promote with a super ID that's cross-certified between environments, you can ensure that certain staff, maybe developers, are contained within their responsible environment. So you don't have to worry about those ID files from development being used within your production environment. Build Manager will promote with that stored ID, even though it's one of those developers with an ID and development domain. They can still promote into, say, UAT, but they're doing it with the authorization of the ID that's stored within the product. So it's all controlled, and the password is encrypted within the product. So that, again, allows for, the role segregation in the release process. So what will happen at this point is then we can say, okay, well, if we go now and we look at our template registry, you can very quickly see that a new version has been rolled out. So now I've got version 9.3.3, build 11 that has been rolled out for that application. Okay. So what happens at this point is we can say, okay, so we push into UAT. The template is automatically approved for UAT because Larry's approved it, but it's sitting here, but it's not been deployed to UAT. So this is where I talked about decoupling the actual version or the template that's being promoted from both environments, even though it's been approved for use in an environment. So development can now continue working on 9.3.4 without having to wait for staff in UAT to be ready to receive 9.3.3, if you see where I'm going. Okay. Now, what I'm going to use as an example, I'm going to use production promotion as an example. So let's say that the testing on 9.3.3 has already been, performed. What I can do is I can say, okay, at that certain point, we can say, well, we'll come in here and we'll say, we actually want this template to be available within production. So again, you can have a promotion approval or an approval step on that to actually say, okay, well, we're going to maybe assign this to a specific administrator or maybe a manager, release manager, who's responsible for controlling access within production. And we say, okay, well, this version of the template we want to have available within production. So once again, I should have within my view, pending approval, I leave tracking application, and we say, yeah, we actually want to have that approved for in production. Luckily enough, I have access. I'm sure you can see that what should be done is actually that broken up amongst different employees and technical roles. Now, once we see that that has been moved, I can say, okay, well now we'll see that version 9.3.3 is available within production. Now 9.3.2, of course we didn't bump up, but now we can say at a certain point in time, we can do a promotion into production when the administrator for that environment feels that it's appropriate for that to occur. As well, we've got our previously approved version 9.3.1 within production, so we can very easily roll back should 9.3.3 actually cause a problem, okay? So at that point is where I'm then going to go to my Build Manager instance that is responsible or is utilized for production, and here you'll see that we have a few more steps. So on the promotion path is usually what you're doing is you're pulling out of template registry into a target environment. Now these steps are usually environment variables, so they'll do things such as signing for a specific environment, enable an agent for a specific server or on a certain environment, things of that nature. So you're not going to want to sign, for example, going into template registry because you're probably just going to have to re-sign coming back out. So there's no sense in duplicating your processes. You want to keep them as lean as possible, unless, of course, you use the same ID through all of your environments, then that might be appropriate. But it all depends on how you guys work. So in this case, what you can do is you have a number of things. For example, you've got stored resources. What we can do is, I mentioned the IDs earlier, but we have a number of different kinds of stored resources. So we've got stored IDs that will be promotion IDs or signing IDs. You can have ACLs. So if we want to say, okay, I want to have a standard template ACL within my production environment, what Build Manager will do is assign that ACL to a template, and I'll stipulate at this point that it can help you to deploy or standardize the ACLs against the templates only. It doesn't do the NSFs, only the templates, and there's specific reasons for that. As well, you can have stored target servers and what template registries actually that this Build Manager can pull from. So as they mentioned earlier, Build Manager is a very configurable product. If your processes grow, you can have multiple template registries for different environments, different regions, whatever. You can have as many instances of Build Manager as you need in order to break things up, but again, that's going to, of course, add to your management of the solution or the burden of the management solution, so you want to keep it as lean as possible, but you do have that flexibility. So if I jump back very quickly to my admin or to my promotion tab, we'll see here that the application that we've been looking at has got a number of different ones. So typically I can say, okay, well, we've got specific servers. I want to set agent for a specific server on that step. I can say maybe I want to set element level properties. You can say, okay, maybe we want to clear or ensure that no prohibit design refresh flags are set. You know, all kinds of different things. You can sign maybe with a stored ID. In this case, I'm using a production ID that I want to sign with when I release into production, as well as, of course, a refresh design. So if you're doing a refresh design, you can list your target databases that are going to inherit from this template. So when you do promote, what's going to happen is that Build Manager is going to take that template, it's going to apply all those standard steps, and the final step it's going to do is go and refresh. So you don't need your design task running on your servers. It will go and refresh the design of any target NSF that you list within that field. Okay. Finally, of course, it would go and let me know. Me being offline at the moment, I've disabled that step as well. So you've already seen approval steps. I'm also going to disable that one. So if I just run a quick promotion, you can see that we can have up to 14 different steps, all on a single production path or a promotion path, I should say, or build path. And you can even add multiple steps of the same one for certain kinds of releases if you need. It's all very customizable. But when it comes down to it, point being is I can apply all of these 10 to 14 different steps all in a consistent manner on the same path so that nothing will be omitted. When you release into production or into UAT, you can be sure that all the steps you've defined will be applied. If they're not applied and it fails for some reason, the promotion will be rolled back and it won't be released into your target environment, and of course a log will be generated. So we can go and promote that now, and there's a few different ways that you can do this. So I've got it currently configured to allow me to choose what version for production I want to choose. So if you have an instance where you want to have a rollback, it's as easy as choosing that previous version and hitting OK. But I actually want to choose 933, so I can go ahead, choose that, and promote. And you'll see that as all the steps get applied in the background, you have a plugin here for 8.5.1 and above that will allow you to run this in the background, and you can actually keep track on it. So we can continue working if we want and go into our mail or whatnot. But you know, we're interested in seeing what's going on here. So I'm going to wait for this to complete. I think it's already done. And you'll see that we've done a number of different things. So we refreshed a design of a database. We assigned an ACL here in the log. So all of these steps seem to have been applied okay. And I can come back to my application. And you know, this will be the template that we just released, and this will be the NSF that we just refreshed, okay, just to be certain. And what I can actually go and do is say, if my NSF actually has a problem, what I can very quickly do is go back and say, actually we need to roll back. It's as easy as going back, reselecting that promotion path, clicking on the promote database and saying 931 release. And that will take you back to the previous version. There's no need to go back to development, ensure that the version that was in production was actually the one that development had given you earlier. As we know, many things or many design changes do occur from time to time in production. This will help you ensure that the version integrity that left development is the same one that's sitting on your production server. Of course, ACLs and everything need to be in place to ensure that, but it does help you ensure and lock that down as long as you do and implement the solution correctly. So you'll see that I quickly did a release, applied all these typical kinds of steps to my template that I've now released into production. So Build Manager comes with a few other things. It will allow you as well to kind of actually build upon the solution. There are a number of different things you can do. One of the steps I didn't discuss, it's a fairly complicated one, is you can actually run an agent as well. So if you do have anything that's part of your promotion process where you want to pass on or parse value, or sorry, variables onto a target application, you can do that as well with an agent, or hand over values to an agent. That's not a problem. So a number of different steps and different things you can do with the product. If you can't do it with one of the steps, then you can certainly do it with a customized agent that you can write yourself and initiate with the product. Okay. So at this point, I think we will not go too much deeper into the product, but I'd like to hand back over to Dan just for our question and answer session. So just bear with me for 1 second. I'll come back over.
Dan, are you still with us?
I most certainly am.
All right, perfect. Let's see if I can help pass.
Yeah, and Dan, you should have that.
Okay, show my screen, and we've got it.
There we go.
So great. Yeah, now we can move into the question and answer period with the time that we have left. But as always, thoroughly impressed with Grant and Larry's knowledge of these solutions. So thank you both for those demonstrations. And the one thing that I would add in addition to what was just shown is that in particular with Build Manager, there are some services that we include with the deployment of the solution. As Larry and Grant both mentioned, these are both customizable, and in particular Build Manager involves some minor consultation with the client to understand the current build process and specifically map the Build Manager solution to your existing processes, so that there's a limited ramp up in terms of how business is being done. So there is some setup time for a day or two with that as well. So Scott, have there been any questions submitted, or maybe we could field a few of those?
Yep, we do have some questions, and now's the time to type in your questions if you have any. The first question is if the refresh of design fails, is there any recovery capability through Build Manager?
Yep, you can have it so that the promotion, there's actually a checkbox on one of the, can you hear me okay? Sorry, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Yep, sorry. Yep, so there is an option where you can have it so that the promotion will fail. Build Manager will actually do all of its work to the template on a local workstation, and it takes a backup of the template prior to that. So that should a refresh fail, it can go back and do a rollback.
All right, perfect. How does it work in a clustered environment?
Okay, well, as long as you can promote in the same, probably along the same kind of process that you currently do in a clustered environment. If you basically push your template and do design refresh on a certain kind of core server, you can do the same thing with Build Manager, and then your cluster will obviously populate from that single point.
Okay.
Can I add a Chow point on that, please? If you have a clustered development server, then you need to be asking yourself, why do I have a clustered development server? Usually that would be because you're doing testing where you're developing. So that would be the first thing to talk about if you were interested in Chow, because Chow technically doesn't support clustered environments, but in every case that I've come across, there is no need for the clustering in development. It's clustering and test that you require.
Okay. Excellent. Can you prepare a version impacting several NSFs? So I'm not sure if maybe we might need some clarification on this, but I guess if you have an NTF and you want to apply it against several NTFs, or excuse me, NSFs.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. So the step, or the refresh and replace, design replace step in Build Manager, you can use a wildcard. So you can say a target. For example, we have a certain customer that has a project database that they do this with. You can release refresh, say 100 designs or 50 designs in a target directory from a specific template, yes, simply using wildcard and a directory structure.
Okay, perfect. There's a question here about support for IBM iSeries. I believe that probably apply to Build Manager more than the Chow.
Yeah, Chow doesn't support iSeries anymore. Larry, can you talk about Build Manager?
Yeah, if you're going onto different platforms, it does support going onto targets or onto a target server of a different platform. Yes, so it's not tied down like Chow is. So you can have Build Manager that's, I should say, the server side. So you can have Build Manager that's, for example, running on or deploying to a Linux platform, for example. But what you can't do is that the Notes client would have to still be Windows.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, because a lot of the preparation will happen on the local Notes client.
Right. Right. Absolutely. All right. Can I easily replace the live design in production if a critical bug is found?
I suppose that's for Build Manager, yes. As I just showed, I think at the end of that, that thing, you can fairly quickly roll back and be fairly certain of the version that you're rolling back to. No need to go all the way back to development and get approval for that, because the previous version obviously was already approved for production. So in a lot of cases, that's fine.
All right. Perfect. There are a couple of questions coming up about pricing. I'll let Dan address that at the very end. We're not going to address specific costs, but he can discuss the models at that point. So I'll skip that question and come down. When check-in, I'm sorry, this is a longer question. When check-in a design, does the design get locked? Hold on a second. I've got to expand my window here. I'm reading like 3 words at a time for some reason now. Here we go. So when you check in a design, does the design get locked, meaning others can't open it for editing, or they can open it but get prompted as already checked out? So I think we saw that it's you really can't open it. You can't open it in edit mode. It just opens for read only, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, when it's checked out to somebody else, so when you don't have control, you'll be able to actually open it, and you'll be prompted to say you can't make any changes. Whereas if the element is open, you can go in, and as soon as you make a change, it will prompt you to take control. But essentially, no, you can't make any changes if somebody else controls it.
Perfect. Just a quick clarification follow-up here. So obviously, Chow doesn't work on IBM iSeries. It's more of a client add-in. But you can use Build Manager on the IBM iServers.
Yeah, I can double check for exact specifics with our developers, but I'm fairly certain that you can release.
Okay. We'll get some clarification back on that. Thank you for that question, and we'll get it. We have it logged here who asked that question, so we can get direct contact there for you guys so you can follow up on that. If you have a multiple database application, can you use Build Manager for managing multiple templates and deploying across all the databases involved?
Yes and no. So yes, you can. There is a new project feature within the product. Well, I should say yes and yes, actually. There is a new project feature within the product that you can deploy multiple templates at the same time during the same promotion. But you really have to think about if there's any changes that aren't occurring to the other modules, do you really need to release them at the same time? Maybe as long as they're all stand for the same version number or something with Chow and development. But if you do have that requirement, you can do that. There are a couple of gotchas that you'd have to be aware of that we could discuss offline. just because it would be a longer of a conversation. But yeah, the short answer on that is yes, you can do that.
Okay, perfect. When prompting changes to production, it may be necessary to initialize new fields in existing docs. Would it be possible to execute agents for this initialization through Chow or Build Manager?
Yeah, you can initiate an agent as part of the promotion process. The one thing that you want to keep in mind with doing custom agents as part of the release process is that the work to do the agent, as long as it's something you're going to do in a repeatable kind of manner, then it makes sense. If it's something that's going to be a one-off, then it might not be something that you want to make part of your promotion process that's locked in the Build Manager, because obviously if it's a one-off and it's not something you're going to need to be repeatable. But you could also have additional paths that are for rollback specific. So if you do use an agent to kind of massage data or something after release, you could have a secondary path that would be part of a rollback kind of promotion with a kind of an agent that would undo that, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Great. If the follow-up question is necessary, I'm sure it'll come in here. But excellent. All right. So we are right at the hour mark. Let's have a couple more questions if needed. There is one more in the queue already. We have a number of databases that inherit their design from a template. In your example, you refreshed a single database. Would Build Manager work for our situation where they have a number of databases? I think we kind of addressed this already.
Yeah, I think we did address that. So yeah, you can use a wildcard in that field and do a design refresh of multiple DBs.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we just have multiple questions coming in here from multiple people. All right. Great. I think that's all of the questions. We're running just a little bit over time. So Dan, I'm going to let you kind of do a summary here. I want to thank everyone for attending, and I want to thank Team Studio for their presentation. Dan, so if you'll just kind of address how the licensing model works. If we missed any questions, I apologize, and we will we'll have Team Studio follow up directly with you. There are a couple of clarification questions that are there, so we'll have them follow up with you regarding that. But Dan, the last leg is yours, and time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate that. So in terms of the pricing component, what I'd like to do is just break down what the components are, and then field any questions, and I'll put my contact information back up. But there are basically four different things that we looked at today. Okay, so we've got the Chow client, which Grant showed us, that you can access from Designer, or you can use through its own dedicated interface. So you've got the Chow client piece, which would be needed for each developer or anyone using the system. There also is a Chow server component, which is optional but encouraged. The Chow server locks down access to design changes at the server level. So that would be a second component, just breaking down products that we're looking at. The Build Manager system is priced, and there is a license fee for each individual that is either creating a promotion path or involved in the promotion process, i.e. pushing the button, authorizing approval. So there'd be a definition on the number of Build Manager users. So that would be, based on what we looked at, the third component, but that's part of Build Manager. And then, as I mentioned near the end, there is some on-site time, typically about 3 days, for configuration and training of the system. So this includes the build process consultation and so on. So those are the components. My contact information is here. I'd like to understand what the overall requirement is and offer special pricing to anyone that was able to join the demonstration and the webinar today. I'll personally address with Larry and Grant any technical questions and also work with each individual on a special pricing package. But those are the four components to be considered. So. Sorry for the long answer, but that's a summary of everything that we looked at today. Many warm thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks to Grant, to Larry, and of course Scott at NotesCode for arranging everything today. So we'll wrap up.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you at Connect. Bye-bye.